Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. It's tough when long-standing friendships hit unexpected bumps, especially over something as significant as a wedding. Here's the story of a friend who navigated the delicate situation of being uninvited and then re-invited to a wedding reception with a torn-up letter and a bit of drama in between. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. Declined a friend's wedding invitation because she very specifically invited me, but not my partner. Background is I've known my friend for at least 12 years, supported her through health problems and a marriage breakdown. She's been there when I've needed it too. We've seen off some tough times together, and I have loved her dearly through it all. Last year, she met a new man, and they're getting married soon, and of course I couldn't be happier for her. He's lovely, very clever, very kind, and he's crazy about her. This isn't the first wedding for either of them, and he's quite well off. So they're having something of a posh but smallish wedding ceremony where his family is, and a reception here where she lives, all very exciting. Which makes my question all the more awkward. She's very specifically invited me, but not my partner to the wedding reception. I've spoken to the few friends we have in common, and they've all had partners included. One husband that's going has never met her, which means if I did go, I'd be on my own all day. She and my OH have never fallen out, and while I guess he might not be her favorite person in the world, he is mine. He's not all that posh, and yes, they're very different people, but not to put too fine a point on it, that didn't seem to matter much when furniture needed moving or cars needed checking out before buying. But when it comes to a reception in a very posh hotel, it seems to be a thing. She sent an invitation through with a covering note saying numbers were limited, the invitation is just me, and she hopes he understands. I didn't show it to him, that just seemed unnecessarily hurtful. So I wrote her what I thought was a very loving letter saying that I won't be there with her on the day, that I totally understand that numbers are limited, but that I'm very happy for and will be thinking of her on the day, and I can't wait to hear all about it. I suggested we have a nice long lunch after the event and she can tell me every detail. I've just come home to find the letter back through the letterbox torn into pieces. Update. She's just called in tears. Apparently their 30-odd adult children and much of his family have refused to come to the London thing. Long story, but they don't approve of the swift wedding and it's causing enormous pain to them both, which I understand. She apologized profusely for tearing up my letter and says she acted so awfully because she's so stressed and upset and is very ashamed of herself. She got a few refusals today, and apparently mine was something of a lightning rod for her emotions. That's why she did what she did. My partner wasn't in the least bit offended at not being invited in the end, and her excuse for not inviting him was that she thought he wouldn't be comfortable. That still sticks with me a little bit for some reason, but I'm letting it go. She says he's more than welcome if he'd like to come. Yes, I'm ignoring the fact that he's clearly a space filler now, and we're probably going because I don't want to add to her distress, but I'll talk to him when he wakes up. Morning update. I've had a very long talk with my partner. He thinks we should go, keep the peace, and be happy for her. He thinks she'll have to have another drama about something else soon enough, and I think he makes a good point. I won't mention the ripped-up letter to anyone or the invite upset. We're just going to pretend it never happened. He reserves the right to tell her that he's coming in a dinosaur costume, though, and I think that's fair. He won't actually do it, obviously. I'm not keen to lose a friend, and I'll try not to, but I probably won't rely on her quite as much as I have in the past. Weddings are so stressful for everyone. I hope you and SO can get some understanding as to her original thoughts and motivation for inviting just you. And our second story. Encroaching neighbor. A few weeks ago, my husband and I bought a house in a small town. Right from the start, I got a bad vibe from our next-door neighbor, a lady who practically forced us into a friendly chat, which quickly turned into a polite Southern-style complaint session about how our tree guy was cutting down dead trees and trimming the overgrown ones. It was clear she wasn't happy, but we figured it was just typical neighborly gripe. When the topic of fencing came up, we mentioned our plans to build a privacy fence around our property. To be considerate, we asked if she would mind if we stopped at her fence instead of building all the way down the property line. That's when she hit us up with, "Oh, absolutely not. I own 4 feet beyond my fence, and I need to be able to get to those bushes." She said this as if it were common knowledge, but here's the kicker. Those bushes she claimed to own were a mess, completely unmaintained. I left that conversation with a nagging feeling that something wasn't right, so I told my husband we needed to get a survey done immediately. I just didn't trust her. The survey results were mind-blowing. Not only was she not the owner of the 4 feet she claimed, but her fence, concrete slab, and a large shed-like structure were encroaching a whopping 21 feet onto our property. And this wasn't a minor mistake. 21 feet is substantial, not something you just overlook. To make matters worse, the surveyor who did our property had also done hers a couple years ago when she bought the place, so she knew exactly where her property lines were. She just decided to help herself to our land anyway. This situation was ridiculous. Not only did she steal 21 feet of our property, but she also encroached 4 feet onto her other neighbor's land, which happens to be a business office. That's not our problem, but it shows a pattern of behavior. Clearly, this lady thought she could just annex pieces of land wherever she felt like it. We knew right away that we needed to contact a lawyer. She either has to pay for the land she thought she could steal, or she's going to have to tear down part of her 2-story shed, rip out her cement patio, and take down her fence. The thought of how long this legal battle could take is frustrating, but I'm not about to let somebody get away with stealing my property. We're meeting with the lawyer today, and we're considering a few options. Option 1 will offer her the chance to remove all her stuff from our land, which will cost her a lot of money. Frankly, I don't care if she's out of pocket. It's not my problem she built on land that wasn't hers. Option 2, she can buy the piece of land from us, but it's going to cost her. If she thought she was going to steal from us, she's got another thing coming. She'll pay a pretty penny for that land, or she won't get it. Option 3, she can rent the property from us for a nice monthly fee for 12 months. She'll need to get renter's insurance, and at the end of the 12 months, she's out. I'd love to see the look on her face when she reads that option. I'm sure she thinks renting is beneath her, but that's what she gets for trying to steal our land. We're also thinking about giving her 30 days to make a decision. If she doesn't, we'll just take over our property. Legally, she'd need to have been using the property for 10 years and paid taxes on it for 2 to claim it, but she's only been here for 7 years and hasn't paid a dime in taxes on that portion of land. I'm absolutely mind blown by the nerve of some people. But one thing's for sure, she picked the wrong people to mess with. I'm not going to let her get away with this. Update. We met with the lawyer and decided to go with option 2, selling the land to her at a steep price. Our lawyer drafted a formal letter offering to sell her the 21 feet she'd encroached on, but at a price that reflected both the value of the land and the cost of the headache she caused us. We gave her 30 days to respond before we'd pursue legal action to reclaim our property. As expected, she didn't take the news well. She tried to negotiate, claiming that she wasn't aware of the encroachment and shouldn't have to pay such a high price. We didn't budge. It was clear she knew exactly what she was doing when she built on our land, and we weren't about to let her get away with it. After a few weeks of back and forth through our lawyer, she finally caved and agreed to buy the land. The sale went through, and we made sure to include a clause that she had to remove her fence and shed if she didn't pay by a certain date. In the end, we got a nice chunk of change, and she learned the hard way that you can't just steal someone's property and expect to get away with it. She's been much quieter since, and we've had no more issues with her or her encroachments. And our last story, fiery HOA. Have you ever dealt with a homeowners association? Well, I have, and it was one of the strangest and most stressful episodes of my life. It all started pretty normally, but ended up like something out of a crime thriller. I live on a small farm that I inherited from my father. We have 30 acres of land, a couple barns, and a dozen ostriches, my pride and joy, and some chickens for selling farm fresh eggs. These animals have been with me since childhood, and my son and I always take care of them together. We also grow a bit of grain, vegetables, enough for ourselves and to sell in the city. We live peacefully, not bothering anyone, and until recently, everything was calm. One day, the local HOA president showed up at my doorstep. a neatly shaved man in his early 40s wearing a suit that looked as out of place on a farm as an ostrich in a city park. I approached him. "Hello, how can I help you?" "Good afternoon, Mr. Johnson," he began with a smirk. "I'm Bob Parker, the president of our HOA. I wanted to discuss the possibility of your integration into our community." "HOA?" I squinted. "Listen, I'm a farmer. I've got land, barns, ostriches. I don't think I need it." Bob didn't seem to notice my words and continued. "You see, Mr. Johnson, all the houses around you are part of the HOA. We maintain order, improve morale, and foster friendliness in our community. I'm sure you'll appreciate the benefits we offer." "Order and friendliness," I chuckled. "My order is healthy ostriches and a weed-free harvest. Friendliness is when neighbors come by for eggs and I treat them to vegetables." "What do I need from your HOA?" Parker, visibly displeased with my response, persisted. "We could discuss terms. For instance, you could donate 20% of your produce for the benefit of our community. This would boost morale and strengthen friendliness among our residents. Imagine how it would be received." I almost laughed in his face. "Donate 20% of my produce? Are you kidding? I put so much work into this land, I'm not about to share it with those who haven't lifted a finger." Parker was visibly angered. His friendly smile vanished. "I suggest you reconsider your attitude, Mr. Johnson," he said coldly. "Our community might not be as welcoming as you think." With that, he turned and left. I stood on the porch, shaking my head. The nerve of that guy, I thought. A couple of weeks later, I went to the city for a few days, leaving my son to look after the farm. When I returned, I was met with a horrifying sight. 2 barns had burned to the ground. The grain field was scorched earth. But the worst part, the fire had spread to a house on the edge of the HOA, which belonged to Bob Parker's brother. I was in shock. How could this have happened? I immediately called the police and firefighters. They started investigating, and a few days later, I was served with a court summons. It turned out Parker, his brother, and a few active HOA members had filed a collective lawsuit against me for violating fire safety regulations. The trial was a circus. Parker's lawyer built a case claiming I hadn't properly maintained safety on my farm, leading to the fire. Everything was going against me until I remembered the footage from a camera set up by the ostrich pen. The camera was installed to monitor the birds. My son needed it for a biology project. When I pulled up that footage and handed it to my lawyer, everything became clear. The video clearly showed someone sneaking up to my barns late at night and setting them on fire. And guess who it was? None other than Bob Parker. The video caused an uproar in court. Parker tried to wriggle out of it, claiming it was a setup, a fabrication, but the evidence was undeniable. He was found guilty of arson and property damage. He got 10 years in prison for premeditated arson and the damage caused. I was awarded compensation for the lost property and crops. The HOA was dissolved by court order, and all members were required to compensate for the damage caused to my farm. Now I've installed cameras all over the property with motion sensors. And you know what's most important? Not a single animal was harmed. So I did everything right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.